Sir, step away from the car. Whose vehicle is this?
It's mine. I'm just trying to go home.
People like you don't usually drive something like this. Let me see some ID.
I just wrapped up a long day at work. I'm not giving you my license. There's no reason to.
Refusing? That's obstruction. I could put you in cuffs right now.
What I'm gonna do is read this. That's my judicial ID. I'm gonna sit in.
Dylan Mercer was brand new to police work, just 7 months into his job with the Philadelphia Police Department when he made a mistake that would cost him everything. It was a regular evening in a quiet parking lot. Around 7:30 p.m. there was no emergency call, no crime reported, nothing urgent at all. But when Mercer spotted a black man heading toward his car, something inside him decided this person didn't look like he should be driving such an expensive vehicle. The man wore a black hoodie, blue jeans, and sneakers, everyday clothes. The scene was calm. Nothing looked suspicious or dangerous. Still, Mercer approached him and asked for his ID. The man explained he was just finishing a long shift and heading home. He refused to hand over his identification because, legally, there was no reason he had to. That's when Officer Mercer pushed things further. Within seconds, he would learn that the man he was questioning was actually a Superior Court judge in Pennsylvania. Before I go on, where are you tuning in from? If this is your first visit, go ahead and hit subscribe. Stories like this one deserve attention, and your support helps us keep sharing them. It was March 12th in Philadelphia, early evening. The parking lot outside the Parkside apartment complex was mostly empty. A few cars sat scattered around. The sun was going down, stretching shadows across the ground. Dylan Mercer was only 23 years old. He'd been a cop for just 7 months, 7 months spent trying to prove himself, trying to show he wasn't just another rookie, trying to convince everyone, including himself, that being tough meant being good at the job. His training officer had written this in his early reviews. Officer Mercer shows energy and eagerness, but struggles to judge real threats and calm situations down. He often sees everyday actions as suspicious, needs more supervision in the field. But despite those red flags, Mercer was cleared to patrol on his own. The department was short on officers. Training got cut short. Warnings were written down, then forgotten. In those first 7 months, Mercer had already racked up 3 complaints from the public, all for stops that turned out to be unjustified. All involved people of color. None of them resulted in any real punishment, just a quick talk with a supervisor. A pattern was forming, but nobody seemed to be watching. That night, Mercer was driving through the Parkside neighborhood on routine patrol. No calls coming in, no action to respond to, just cruising, watching, hunting for something to do. At 7:34 p.m., he pulled into the parking lot of a mid-rise apartment building. Right away, his attention locked onto a black man walking across the lot toward a parked car, a late-model Mercedes, silver, spotless, clearly expensive. The man was dressed casually, black hoodie, blue jeans, sneakers. He walked at a relaxed pace, keys in hand, clearly heading to his own car. To most people, this would look completely normal, just someone leaving for the day, someone who lived there. But Dylan Mercer saw it differently. He saw a black man in a hoodie walking toward a luxury car, and in Mercer's mind, shaped by assumptions he'd never questioned, that didn't make sense. People like that don't drive cars like this. He didn't say it out loud, maybe he didn't even think it consciously, but that belief was there, guiding what he did next. Mercer pulled his patrol car into the lot and stopped near the Mercedes. He got out and walked toward the man with purpose. Judge Donovan Price had been awake for nearly 20 hours straight. At 44, Price was a Superior Court judge for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He'd held that position for 6 years, presiding over criminal cases, civil lawsuits, and appeals. Before becoming a judge, he'd spent 12 years as a trial lawyer specializing in civil rights. His colleagues respected him. His rulings rarely got overturned. His reputation was built on fairness, careful thinking, and an unwavering respect for the Constitution. But that night had been exhausting. He'd stayed late working on a complicated legal opinion, reviewing past cases, writing carefully, making sure every argument was rock solid. By the time he finished, it was past 7:00 p.m. He'd taken a quick shower in his office, changed into comfortable clothes, and headed to the parking lot to drive home. All he wanted was to get in his car, make the 15-minute drive to his house, and sleep. He didn't want small talk, he didn't want drama, and he definitely didn't want to deal with a police officer. But that's exactly what was about to happen. "Excuse me," Officer Mercer called out, his tone immediately commanding. "I need to talk to you." Judge Price stopped and turned around, keys still in his hand. He saw the uniform, the patrol car, the young officer walking toward him with his hand near his belt. His first thought wasn't worry, it was exhaustion. "Not now, not today." "Good evening, officer," Price said calmly, though his voice was tired. Is there a problem? Can I see some ID? Price frowned. ID for what? I need to verify who you are. I'm a resident here. I'm walking to my car. What's the issue? Mercer's eyes moved to the Mercedes, then back to Price. That your car? Yes. Can you prove it? Price's jaw tightened. He'd spent years as a civil rights lawyer. He knew exactly where this was headed, and as a judge, he recognized an unlawful stop when he saw one. Officer, I don't need to prove anything. I'm on private property. I haven't broken any laws. You have no legal reason to ask for my ID. Mercer stepped closer. I'm asking nicely. Show me your ID. And I'm declining politely because you don't have reasonable suspicion or probable cause. Are you refusing to cooperate with a police officer? I'm exercising my constitutional rights. Those aren't the same thing. And there it was, the moment that could have ended peacefully. A more experienced officer would have realized what was happening here. A tired man walking to his own car, he would have backed off. But Dylan Mercer didn't back off. If this happened to you, do you think the officer actually cared about having a legal reason, or was he just looking for an excuse after the fact? Drop a comment and let me know. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be told, and your support helps us bring more truth forward. Escalation without cause. Officer Mercer reached for his radio. I'm going to call this in as a suspicious person refusing to identify. Judge Price stayed calm, but his patience was wearing thin. Call whoever you want, but understand this: when your supervisor gets here, I'm going to explain that you stopped me without cause, asked for ID without legal justification, and are now threatening to escalate because I know my rights. Mercer's face turned red. You think you're smart? I think I'm informed. There's a difference. People like you. Price's eyes narrowed. People like me. Finish that sentence. Officer Mercer caught himself, realizing he'd almost said something he couldn't take back. People who don't cooperate make things harder for themselves. I'm not making anything harder. You are. You stopped me based on nothing, and now you're trying to justify it after the fact. Mercer's hand moved to his taser, not pulling it out, just resting on the grip. A threat, a show of force. Last chance, Mercer said. Show me ID or I'm detaining you. For what crime? Failure to identify. That's not a crime in Pennsylvania without reasonable suspicion, which you don't have. I have suspicion. Based on what? Articulate it. What specific, observable facts led you to believe I've committed, am committing, or am about to commit a crime? Mercer stammered because there was no answer. There was no reasonable suspicion. There was only bias, only the assumption that a black man didn't belong near an expensive car. I don't have to explain myself to you, Mercer said finally. Actually, under Terry v. Ohio, you do. If you're going to seize me, which is what detention is, you need reasonable, articulable suspicion, and you don't have it. Are you a lawyer or something? Or something. The moment everything changed. Judge Donovan Price had been in situations like this before, not as the target, but as a witness, as an attorney, as someone who'd represented clients who'd been stopped, questioned, and detained for no reason other than the color of their skin. He knew how this worked. He knew the tactics. He knew the language officers used to justify stops that couldn't be justified. And he knew that arguing back could make things worse, could turn a bad stop into something violent. But he also knew that just cooperating wouldn't protect him. That showing his ID wouldn't end the humiliation. That giving in to unlawful authority just reinforced the idea that officers could do this without consequences. So he made a choice. He reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Mercer's hand tightened on his taser. What are you doing? Getting my identification, since you've made it clear you're not leaving without it. Keep your hands where I can see them. There where you can see them. I'm reaching into my jacket slowly, no sudden movements. Price pulled out a black leather wallet and opened it carefully. Inside was his driver's license, his credit cards, and something else. A metal badge, gold, heavy, official. He removed it from the wallet and held it up so Mercer could see it clearly. Superior Court of Pennsylvania, Judge Donovan Price, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The badge caught the evening light, gleaming with authority that couldn't be questioned or dismissed. Mercer's eyes went wide, his hand fell away from his taser. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Price's voice was quiet, controlled, but absolutely devastating. "I'm Judge Donovan Price, Superior Court of Pennsylvania. I've been working all night in my chambers at the courthouse. I'm walking to my car, which is registered in my name, parked in a lot where I'm a resident, and you stopped me because you assumed a black man couldn't afford this vehicle." Mercer's face went pale. "Judge, I didn't. You didn't know because you didn't ask, you didn't verify, you didn't do anything except make an assumption based on race and class. You were just profiling and you did it on camera." Mercer's eyes darted to his body camera mounted on his chest, recording everything. The red light was on. It had been on the entire time. Every word, every threat, every moment of this unlawful stop was documented. "Judge, I'm sorry, I didn't mean." "You meant exactly what you did. You saw a black man and decided he was suspicious. You demanded ID without cause. You threatened detention without justification. And you put your hand on your taser when I tried to assert my constitutional rights." "Please, What's your badge number?" Mercer fumbled with his uniform, reading the numbers out loud, his voice shaking. Price pulled out his phone and typed them into a note. "And your supervisor's name?" "Sergeant Holloway. I'll be speaking with him and with Internal Affairs, and with your department's legal counsel." Mercer looked like he was going to be sick. "Judge, can we just forget this happened?" Price's expression hardened. "No, we can't, because this happens every day to people who don't have my credentials, who don't have my authority, who don't have the legal knowledge to fight back, and they just have to accept it. Well, I'm not accepting it, and I'm making sure there are consequences." The supervisor arrived. A second patrol car pulled into the lot. An older officer stepped out, Sergeant Holloway, responding to Mercer's earlier radio call. "What's going on here?" Holloway asked, immediately sensing the tension. Price held up his judicial badge. "Your officer stopped me without cause, demanded ID without reasonable suspicion, and threatened detention when I asserted my rights. I'm Judge Donovan Price, Superior Court, and this entire encounter is on his body camera." Holloway's face went from confused to horrified in seconds. "Judge Price." "Yes." Holloway turned to Mercer, his voice low and furious. "Get in your car, now, don't say another word, go back to the station and wait for me." Mercer nodded and walked back to his patrol car, moving like someone in a daze. Holloway turned back to Price. "Judge, I apologize, this should not have happened." "No, it shouldn't have, but it did, and it's going to be addressed." "I understand, we'll launch an investigation." "I'm not relying on your internal investigation. I'm filing a formal complaint, and I'm considering legal action." Holloway nodded, knowing there was nothing he could say that would make this better. Price got into his car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving the sergeant standing in the parking lot, realizing that his rookie officer had just destroyed his own career and exposed the department to catastrophic liability. What would you have done? If a rookie officer spoke to you like this, even though you were the one with authority, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. The complaint is filed. By noon the next day, the complaint had been filed. Judge Donovan Price didn't wait around. He didn't give the department time to spin the story or control the narrative. He went straight to Internal Affairs, submitted a formal written complaint, and requested a copy of Officer Mercer's body camera footage. Within hours, the Pennsylvania Judicial Defense Union got involved. Within a day, the state attorney general's office was notified. Within a week, civil rights groups were calling for a full investigation and public accountability. This wasn't just a bad stop. This was a sitting Superior Court judge, an officer of the state judiciary, someone whose authority and credibility were beyond question, unlawfully detained by a rookie cop based purely on racial profiling. The optics were catastrophic, the legal exposure was enormous, the political pressure was immediate and intense. Internal Affairs launched its investigation right away. The body camera footage was reviewed by multiple supervisors, legal advisors, and the department's civil rights officer. What they saw was damning. Officer Mercer approaching without cause, Judge Price calmly explaining his rights, Mercer demanding ID, Price declining, Mercer escalating, Price revealing his judicial credentials, Mercer's immediate panic. The timeline was clear, the violation was obvious, the defense was non-existent. Investigators also pulled Mercer's personnel file and found the pattern that should have been addressed months earlier. 3 prior complaints, all involving unjustified stops, all involving people of color, all dismissed with minimal follow-up. Training evaluations noting poor judgment and overaggression. Recommendations for additional supervision that were ignored. A rookie officer with 7 months of experience and a documented pattern of racial profiling cleared for solo patrol because the department needed warm bodies on the street. The system had failed, and now it was paying the price. The city realizes it's in deep trouble. The city attorney's office received the complaint and immediately recognized the problem. This wasn't a case they could settle quietly. This wasn't a civilian they could intimidate into dropping the complaint. This was a judge, someone with institutional credibility, someone with legal expertise, someone who couldn't be dismissed or discredited. And the evidence was irrefutable. The city attorney called an emergency meeting with the police commissioner, the mayor's legal counsel, and the head of internal affairs. "We have a problem," the attorney said, "a big one. Judge Price has grounds for a federal civil rights lawsuit, and if this goes to trial, we lose badly." The commissioner tried to defend the officer. He was responding to what? The attorney interrupted. There was no call, no complaint, no suspicious activity. He saw a black man near an expensive car and made an assumption. That's textbook racial profiling. Maybe we can argue he was being proactive. Proactive policing doesn't mean stopping people for existing. The Fourth Amendment still applies, and Judge Price knows that better than anyone in this room. Silent. "How bad is the exposure?" the mayor's counsel asked. "Worst case, 8 figures, best case, high 7 figures, plus mandated reforms and federal oversight." The room went quiet. Civil rights groups mobilized. Meanwhile, civil rights organizations were mobilizing. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund issued a statement calling for accountability and systemic reform. The American Civil Liberties Union requested all records related to Officer Mercer's training and prior complaints. Community leaders organized press conferences demanding answers. Legal experts appeared on local and national news, analyzing the case and predicting significant legal consequences. The Philadelphia Police Department tried to control the narrative, issuing statements about ongoing investigations, commitment to constitutional policing, and zero tolerance for misconduct. But the public wasn't buying it. Because the body camera footage, released through a public records request, told the truth. And the truth was undeniable. A rookie cop had racially profiled a Superior Court judge, demanded ID without cause, threatened detention without justification, and only backed down when he realized the man he was targeting had the authority to destroy his career. Officer Mercer is placed on leave. Officer Dylan Mercer was placed on unpaid administrative leave 3 weeks after the incident. He'd been interviewed by Internal Affairs, and his answers had only made things worse. "I thought he looked suspicious." Based on what? Just the way he was dressed, the car, it didn't match. "What do you mean it didn't match?" Silent. "Officer Mercer, are you saying you stopped Judge Price because you didn't think a black man in a hoodie should be driving a Mercedes?" I mean I wasn't thinking about race." "Then what were you thinking about?" More silent. The deposition was a disaster. Mercer couldn't articulate reasonable suspicion. He couldn't explain his actions. He couldn't defend the stop. Because there was no defense. Systemic failures are exposed. The Pennsylvania State Police Training Commission launched its own review, not just of Mercer, but of the entire Philadelphia Police Department's training and certification process. What they found was systemic failure. Shortened training periods due to staffing pressures, inadequate psychological screening, minimal bias training, supervisors signing off on rookies despite documented concerns. The commission issued a formal report citing multiple violations of state training standards and recommending mandatory reforms. The department had no choice but to comply. Should psychological screening be mandatory? Should police departments be allowed to hire rookies before deep psychological bias screening is mandatory? Comment below and let me know what you think. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. The federal lawsuit is filed. 6 months after the incident, Judge Donovan Price filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. The complaint named Officer Dylan Mercer, Sergeant Holloway, for inadequate supervision, and the city of Philadelphia as defendants. The claims were comprehensive and devastating. Fourth Amendment violation, unlawful seizure without reasonable suspicion. 14th Amendment violation, racial discrimination and denial of equal protection. Violation of Pennsylvania's Civil Rights Act. Municipal liability for inadequate training, supervision, and failure to address documented patterns of misconduct. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. The evidence was overwhelming. Body camera footage showing the entire encounter. Mercer's personnel file documenting prior complaints and training deficiencies. Internal affairs reports showing the department's failure to take corrective action. Expert testimony on racial profiling and Fourth Amendment standards. But the most powerful evidence was Judge Price himself, a sitting Superior Court judge, unimpeachable credibility, expert knowledge of constitutional law, a professional reputation built on fairness and integrity. No jury in the country would side with a rookie cop who'd racially profiled a judge in a parking lot. The depositions are brutal. The depositions were brutal. Mercer's attorney tried to argue that his client had acted in good faith, that he'd made an honest mistake, that there was no intentional discrimination. But the body camera footage destroyed every defense. Officer Mercer, you said Judge Price looked suspicious. What specifically about his appearance or behavior suggested criminal activity? I don't know, it was just a feeling. A feeling based on what observable facts. Silence. Was it the hoodie? Partly. Is wearing a hoodie suspicious? It can be. Is it illegal? No. Was it the fact that he was black? No, I wasn't thinking about race. Then why did you assume he didn't on the car he was walking toward? No answer. The deposition went on for hours. Every question exposed another layer of bias. Every answer revealed the lack of legal justification. Mercer's attorney knew they couldn't win. The city's attorneys knew they couldn't win. Everyone involved knew this case was indefensible. Settlement negotiations began. Settlement negotiations began. The city offered $3 million initially. Judge Price's attorneys rejected it immediately. This isn't about money, Price told his legal team. This is about accountability. This is about making sure this never happens again. This is about sending a message that you can't racially profile people and walk away with a slap on the wrist. The city came back with $5 million. Price rejected it again. $10 million, his attorney said during the next negotiation session, plus mandatory reforms, plus independent oversight, plus public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, non-negotiable. The city's attorneys balked, but they also knew that if this went to trial, a jury might award even more. And the reforms, those were coming whether they agreed or not. The State Training Commission was already mandating changes. Federal oversight was looming. They could settle now and control the narrative, or they could fight and lose everything in court. They settled. The historic settlement. $10 million paid to Judge Donovan Price. The settlement also included public acknowledgement that Officer Mercer's stop was unlawful and racially motivated. Mandatory bias training for all Philadelphia Police Department officers. Extended psychological screening for all new hires. Independent review of all stops and detentions for patterns of racial profiling. Creation of a civilian oversight board with subpoena power. Requirement that all rookies complete at least 18 months of supervised field training before solo patrol. Annual reporting on stop data, complaints, and disciplinary outcomes. The reforms were sweeping, the settlement was historic. And the message was clear: racial profiling has consequences. Officer Mercer is fired. Officer Dylan Mercer was terminated 8 months after the incident. The termination letter was final and unequivocal. Officer Mercer engaged in racial profiling, unlawful detention, and conduct that violated department policy, state law, and federal constitutional protections. His actions have exposed the city to significant legal and financial liability and have damaged public trust in law enforcement. His employment is terminated immediately, and his law enforcement certification is revoked. Mercer appealed through the police union. The appeal was denied. His name was entered into the National Decertification Index, ensuring he would never work in law enforcement again. Not in Pennsylvania, not anywhere in the United States. At 24 years old, his career was over, his future in policing destroyed by a single decision made in a parking lot on a quiet March evening. Judge Price returns to the bench. Judge Donovan Price returned to the bench. When he entered the courtroom for the first time after the settlement, attorneys on both sides stood and applauded. Court staff joined in, even the bailiffs clapped. It was unprecedented. Judges don't receive standing ovations. But this wasn't just about a case. It was about dignity, about standing up to injustice, about using power and privilege to protect people who don't have either. Price raised his hand for silence and spoke briefly. "Thank you, but I didn't do this for applause. I did it because it needed to be done. Because what happened to me happens every day to people who don't have my credentials, my authority, or my resources, and they just have to accept it and move on. That's not justice. That's not equality. And until we fix the systems that allow this to happen, we haven't done our job." The room was silent. Then he sat down, picked up his gavel, and got back to work. "One last question. Do you think civil lawsuit money actually changes future police behavior? Or do you think departments will keep ignoring bias until consequences get even bigger? Let me know in the comments. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. The truth of what happened. Let's be absolutely clear about what happened here. No crime occurred, no threat existed, no emergency justified intervention. A black man walked to his car. That's it. That's the entire factual basis for Officer Dylan Mercer's stop. Everything else, the demand for ID, the threats of detention, the hand on the taser, was built on assumption, on bias, on the belief that a black man in a hoodie couldn't possibly belong near an expensive vehicle. This wasn't about public safety. This wasn't about crime prevention. This was about perception, about who gets to occupy certain spaces, about whose presence is automatically questioned and whose is accepted without scrutiny. Judge Donovan Price changed more than just his own case outcome. The $10 million settlement sent a message.